Hey y'all, this is Patriot Prepper, and I want to talk a little bit about and review Smith and Wesson knives. Talk a little bit about the features of the knives, design and purpose of the knife, function, durability, and abuse factor, cost, weight, steel type, and quality of the blade, the direct competition, and my personal experience with the knife, and give it an overall quality rating and an overall rating and a price-value ratio. That's what I'm going to attempt to do today with the Smith and Wesson knives. Now, before I start, I want to say a couple things. Do not confuse Smith and Wesson knives with Smith and Wesson guns. Yeah, they're the same manufacturer, or same company at least, but Smith and Wesson guns are great guns. They're among the best in the world, especially their revolvers. On the other hand, the Smith and Wesson knives, I say, are very good knives, but they are certainly, in my opinion, not great knives. The world of difference between the Smith and Wesson guns and the Smith and Wesson knives, that world of difference is polarities apart to some degree. Okay, well, let me start with the review. Okay, many of you might want to know, why am I even reviewing Smith and Wesson knives? Because there's a certain group of people that just don't like the knives. And I think some of it goes to the history of the design. There's been some claims that some of their designs were copied. I don't know, that doesn't bother me because I think they're changed enough. And some people wonder about the quality of knives. Okay? Well, the reason I have so many Smith & Wesson knives is because I actually like the knives, I like the design, I like the price, and I own at least 30 of these knives, and what I do is I tuck them everywhere. I put them in some of my go bags. I just put them everywhere in my car. I've got them hidden everywhere so that I always have a backup knife. So no matter what bag I grab, I at least got one knife plus the knives that I carry. And sometimes I'll carry it as a third or fourth knife. So I just like knives. I like their design. I like the function. I like the way they look. I like the price. Okay, so I've got at least 30 or more of these knives. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about the features. These knives have a lot of different, the basic features, like jimping comes on almost every single knife. They've got thumb studs on both sides, so if you're left-handed or ambidextrous, or if you your right hand gets injured, you're able to open it with your left hand. So whatever reason, they have dual thumb studs. Steel liner locks. Basically these knives have features that you would expect on a tactical knife. And so if I go into the design and purpose of the knife, I think you're going to find that these knives were specifically designed for tactical use. Now, of course, they could be used for very general use and a lot of utility use, and I've used them for that. I use them a little bit as a defensive knife because they're designed for that. And here, I'll give you the names of the knife, and it'll give you a hint of the intended design and purpose of Smith & Wesson knives. All right, they have the SWAT line. They have the HRT, which stands for Hostage Rescue Team. They have the Border Guard, Search and Rescue, Extreme Ops, and they have Homeland Security. So I think these names give you an idea of what Smith & Wesson was trying to intend as the design and purpose of the knife. I believe almost every one of these knives is designed for tactical use. Okay, if we get to function, how well do they function as a tactical knife? How well do they function as a utility knife? Okay, well, most of them have a trigger guard, they have jimping, they have the features you need for a tactical knife. They have, the blades are designed decent. The blade lengths are decent on most of the knives. So they're an okay for a tactical knife. Some people might wonder about the weight issue. That doesn't bother me. And the lockup and the quality of the knife blade. But the function of the knife will serve its purpose, and also will serve the purpose of an everyday carry or a utility knife.
These knives are better than others. This Extreme Ops has a very sturdy blade, excellent employment, great lockup. There's really, if I check the blade, there's no wiggle back, very little back and forth and none up and down. It's got a dual thumb studs for ambidextrous or left-hand use. Jimping, textured, not sure the material on here, what it's made of. Liner lock, and it locks up really well. The blade is very, very thick for this price range knife, and I believe this, this is a first production run, and the clip works well. You can see I got a little wear on there, but the clip wears pretty, holds tight. Good quality clip. This particular knife is not extremely heavy. I don't have the exact weight, but it's not overly heavy. Some of them are heavier than others. It's a little hard around the board to compare all these knives because they all have different good features. This is a very, very good knife for the money. People criticize these knives, and and there's a lot of, just like wine snobs, there's knife snobs, but there are some criticism of this knife, and they're not maybe a great knife. This particular one is a very good knife. I really think it's a good knife, especially for the money.
If we go on to durability and abuse factor, okay, these knives are durable. If we, the lockup's good, the quality of the handle's good, the handle material's good, they lock up really well. There's very little of wiggle side to side, and practically none, no wiggle up and down. And up and down to me counts the most because that's how well the blade locks. If we go on to the cost, well, these knives are essentially cheap, and that's one reason I like them. I got 30 knives, and I probably got $700-800 invested. That's not bad. And there's other cheap knives, but the cheap knives I have encountered, some of them are okay and good. The Crown, that Kershaw Crown, was a quality knife, but it's not a tactical knife. It doesn't have all the features of the Smith and Wesson knives. I got a few Chinese knives with no name on them. I just don't trust them as well as I do Smith and Wesson. All right, the weight of the knife. These are not light knives. I think I've had heavier knives, and I had a lot lighter knives. If weight is an issue for you, and I know there's some people that weight is critical, they just won't even consider a knife that weighs into this weight. And everything for them has to be extremely light, or it has to offer something that counters the light, like an additional feature like a super quality blade or a super great price. The weight doesn't bother me. They're not lightweight knives, but they're not extremely heavy. I'd say they're somewhere in the middle. All right, steel type on these knives, I got too many of them to really investigate the steel. They're a stainless type. I thought they were 440 steel, but I think the quality of the steel is okay. But it's maybe the manufacturing, the quality control, or the way they temper it. But the steel on these knives, I think the big factor is not so much the quality of the actual steel as the quality of the quality control, and maybe the tempering, and more than anything, the consistency. Because I've noticed there's an inconsistency in the blades. Some of the blades are extremely good. They're phenomenally good. They sharpen well. They hold their sharpness. They hold an edge. they're just good blades. And others I had difficulty sharpening, and they don't hold an edge. So I think there's a little bit of a quality as far as the consistency. And so the steel type, if you're going to buy one of these knives, the steel type is one variable. But I think more than anything, I just think the steel is okay and good enough and equal to a lot of knives. But like I said, it's the quality control, the quality of the tempering. So that is where I think it falls a little bit short. And if I want to talk about the steel type and quality of the blade, I would say that is probably the weakness of the Smith and Wesson knives. I think if Smith and Wesson could up the quality there, they would have a really, really good, borderline great knives. Because I personally love the design, but the design, that's beauty in the eyes of the beholder. So some guys will not like the design, some guys will. And the looks of the knife, the cool factor, that's something, you have to, how important is that in a knife? Some people, it's critical, that's all they look at. Well, I like the design, but I also like the ruggedness of the knife. And the blade quality, the steel, is good enough for me for what I intend to use it. I use it mostly as a backup knife or partial utility or potential tactical knife alongside other higher quality knives that I could depend on. I just like the knives because I could buy a lot of them and put them everywhere and have them in every bag. I have a knife in my car, every vehicle, every house location, everything, everywhere I go, I'll have a spare knife. So that's one of the factors I like. I just like these knives. I think they're pretty cool. All right, my personal experience with these knives. I've been using these knives for years now. And this little SWAT knife is a 2.5 inch blade, approximately. I should have measured it. Been using that for well over a year. And I use this to open packages. And this knife has been abused. I have beat this knife, and it's durable. I bought the knife so cheap, I thought it was going to be a disposable throwaway knife that would last 2 months, 3 months. That it'd probably break, or I'd be disappointed and I could toss it away or give it away or just throw it in a dresser drawer somewhere. But this knife surprised me. And I've used this knife more than I have any other Smith and Wesson knife. And there's a few others like that the blade and the whole overall knife I really think is an excellent knife. So, like I said, there's a consistency factor with the knives. But my personal experience is I've used every knife that I'm showing in this review. Some of them I carried for a week and used them very light because I don't abuse my knives. My philosophy on knives is that I carry the better knives, I use them less, and I use a cheaper knife for utility and to cut open packages, and I save my blades. So yeah, I didn't pound on these knives, I didn't abuse them, I didn't torture test them. I didn't go out and baton with a small knife or even the larger fixed blade knives. I used them a little bit, and they're acceptable. They have some features that are overall that I really like. So I have a little bit of experience with them, but I'm not promoting these knives to be the end-all, be-all in knives. They are what they are. All right, for an overall quality rating, scale 1 to 10, these knives fall anywhere between 6, 6.5, depending on the knife. Some of them maybe approach 7. Like I said, if Smith and Wesson is on the right track, they've got some nice designs, they've got some really quality knives. If they would just up the bar, raise the bar just a little bit, put a little bit more into the steel and the quality control, they'd have an excellent knives across the board. But I do want to say these are more the lower end Smith and Wesson knives. The other knives, when you go up into that price range, I usually go for a little better quality knife. If I'm going to spend $40, $50 on a Smith and Wesson knife, I'll spend $60, $70, or $80 for a Kershaw or a SOG or a Spyderco or some other knife, that I know the quality is there. And Smith and Wesson just isn't up to par with those brands. That's just my personal belief. So the overall rating, yeah, I give them 6.5 stars, points on a 0 to 1 to 10 scale. So that's the overall rating as far as quality and every other feature on the knife. Now, if we talk the price-value ratio, I have to give them a higher rating because that's where for the price, what are you getting? What's the price? And I forgot to talk about the competition, the direct competition. The direct competition on this knife, well, I don't think there's a lot in that price range. Everything is just priced a little bit above it. So I think, Smith & Wesson has a little bit of a niche there. They have a little bit of competition, but I haven't found anyone that has a direct competition at this price break. I think they kind of own the market, and I think a lot of guys will argue that fact, and I don't want to argue this, and I don't want to argue anything on this knife. If you want to put input and comments, you're welcome to it, because there's a lot of this is opinion. But I just don't think for the price break, and these are $10 to $20, tops $30 knives, and that price range, there's just not a whole lot. For this size knife, for the features of the knife, for being a tactical knife, for having decent quality steel, not the greatest, having a rugged handle and a good lockup, I don't think there's very much direct competition at that price break. All right, price value ratio, because the price is so low, I have to give this knife between an 8 and a 10 for the price value. You're getting a good deal with the knife, but think of the overall quality rating is still a 6 to 6.5, and some of them border on 7. So keep that in mind. If this is going to be your only knife, maybe you want something a little better quality. If you have a lot of knives like I do and you just want to stick them somewhere, so you always have a knife on hand everywhere you go, every one of your bug out bags, your Max Edition bags, every bag I carry, every vehicle I own, every house I own has a Smith & Wesson knife hidden, tucked in somewhere. So it depends on your specific purpose and what you get out of it. But the price-value ratio is excellent, in my opinion. Well, this is Patriot Prepper, and I hope you enjoyed this review, and I hope it's been helpful, and that maybe you find a couple Smith and Wesson knives that you really like. I'm going to be doing more knife reviews. I've got a lot of knives, just never get much time, but I'll try to do more reviews. Anyway, this is Patriot Prepper. God bless you. I want to say keep on prepping. It's Patriot Prepper, over and out.